Facebook. Thank you guys for joining. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this, and I can see already a lot of people queuing to watch the session. I am today here with Vineet. Vineet is from GMAC, is a Senior Director of Product Management. Most of you know me by now. I'm Souvik. I'm a second year, freshly minted alumni of the Michigan Law School of Business. Today, we will talk about GMAT Online and everything about GMAT Online, right from the people who make the test. Just as a background, I took the test a couple weeks back on April 21st. So I shared some of that in the video, but I will ask Vineet some questions based on my experiences and also based on a lot of questions that we got from the community. But before we get all of that, Vineet, why don't you just go ahead and tell us what you do with GMAC?
Sure, absolutely. Hello, Souvik. If you can confirm, you can hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Thank you. And first of all, I thank you, Souvik, and thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I appreciate you taking time and participating and joining us in this session today. First of all, I just want to sort of make a comment that I hope everyone is doing safe and all of you are healthy. I mean, these are very difficult and uncertain times that all of us are facing all over the world, and I hope everyone's sort of taking good care of themselves. Their near and dear ones, their families, friends, because that's the most important thing at this point in time. And I hope we're doing all the right things. As it relates to our own journeys into business school. Several years ago, much like many of you on the call here today, I was going through the same process myself, right? And I have taken the GMAT. I took the GMAT as a means to my journey into business school. So I do understand and I do appreciate and respect what all of you are going through. Not just in the specific context of what the COVID-19 situation has presented upon us, but sort of almost taking a step back and thinking about how this fits into where you want to take your lives, your professional and personal journeys, etc. So, I've lived that myself. If anything, I like the MBA so much that I landed up doing it twice. So, that's how much I believe in the power of management education and its ability to transform our lives and society in general. So, I want to respect your decision to enter this journey, and I want you to know and be comfortable and confident in the fact that we at the Graduate Management Admission Council are here for you at every step along the way. Our organization is, our core purpose and our core mission is to support our test takers, all of you, and our schools in your journeys towards management education. And we're here and with you at every step along the way. Just a quick bio on myself, Souvik. As you mentioned, I am, I lead the GMAT program here at GMAC and have been here for a little over 5 years running the same. And, like many of us on the call here, I started my journey into a path to management and leadership with the GMAT exam several years ago. And since then, since I work on the GMAT, I have taken it multiple times, including the GMAT online exam as well. So, I am intimately familiar with the experiences, the anxieties and, everything that goes into preparing and getting yourself up ready for exam day.
Awesome. So I'm very happy to hear that you took the GMAT online yourself. I wanted to ask you if you had taken the GMAT online. So it's good to know that you did. And I'm definitely going to ask you more questions about that. So Vineet, we will jump right in with some of the questions that we got on GMAT Club and from the community. So the first question, as you would expect about, the online whiteboard and all of that stuff. But also there are a couple of questions that are more logistical related to peripherals used within the test. So I wanted to ask you about them first. A lot of our questions center around, hey, can I use a touchscreen laptop? Can I use a wireless mouse or a stylus? Or I don't even know what those are, but a mouse pen. So I just wanted to know your basic thoughts on these peripherals and their use in the test.
Of course, and I think something just to sort of keep in context here, Shobha, because we're as we've stood up this online solution to support all of our test takers, all of the people on this call, and helping meet admissions deadlines, and ensuring that our plans for business schools stay on track.
Right.
We've had to think differently about how we bring things to market, right? And from
Yeah.
a context perspective, we're stepping away from a highly controlled test center based environment into a very distributed environment where someone's taking, we have very little control over the environment that the someone that one of us is taking the exam in. So we've had to manage for that and build processes and protocols appropriately for that.
Hmm.
So to that extent, we do recognize that there are differences. There are differences in the type of technology that's available to all of us. There's differences in the types of workspace and work environments, or the environments really that we may all have access to, especially during these times of the COVID-19 crisis. So, from that perspective, we've set minimum specifications, minimum technical requirements that we would expect all of our test takers to comply with.
Right.
That is both in terms of the hardware and software that you're expected to have and conform to, and operating systems, and also minimum acceptable requirements for the environment in which you will be taking the exam and what we
Right.
expect your work environment to look like. I think all of those details are on NBA.com on our GMAT online web pages. But as it relates to specifically, the question around pieces of hardware that you mentioned, certainly things like writing devices, any external writing pads, styluses or mouse pens, etc. Those are not permitted.
Right.
Those are not permitted. As it relates to your ability to use a mouse, I think you can use either a wired or a wireless mouse. Obviously, you need it to do some of your work, especially if you're going to be using the online scratch pad.
Right. Awesome. So I remember during my test, I didn't use a mouse. I used the touchpad of
Sure.
my
Laptop.
laptop,
Yeah.
and I think that was fine. It was hard, but which sort of pivots me, because it was hard, to our next whiteboard question. And this is a question that I wanted to ask you. So I'm happy GMAT Club gives me this platform to ask you the question. So a lot of us, when we were speculating about what the lack of scratchpad, or what having an online whiteboard to write on, what impact would that have on test scores, right? And one of the things that I love about the GMAT is how highly standardized the test is.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask you, have you done any sort of testing in do scores drop when people take the GMAT online? Do you expect it to drop? What's the deal there? And because you have taken the test, I can ask you about your scores before and after.
Well, I won't share my score for obvious reasons. But I think we do, as we design solutions. We do obviously we ensure that we're taking the user experience and candidate feedback into account. We also have to solve for multiple things, especially in
Right.
this case, the fact that we are delivering this in an online delivery model, and to account for differences in, as I mentioned previously, differences in people's, the workspace that's available to them and the technology that's available to them. So as we sort of look at all of this and balance all of this in terms of what and how we bring things to market, one core thing from a design perspective that stays unchanged is the integrity and the standardization that comes with the GMAT. And as you sort of rightly pointed out, for the last 65 plus years, the GMAT has been the gold standard for business school admissions
Right.
all over the world. So we've been looking at data, both in the design of the solution and also in the few weeks that we've been in market, and we've had several of our test takers all over the world take the exam, and I can share at least very preliminary data. As we look at things like completion rates, for example, right? Are people
Mhm.
able to are people taking more or less time per question? Are people able
Right.
to complete the exam in time? Completion rates are actually very comparable across the GMAT online
Right.
solution, where compared to our test takers taking it in physical test centers all over the world. So we've not seen any impact in terms of people's ability to answer the questions and answer them in the time that's allotted to them. We've also had preliminary analysis on scores and score performance.
Right.
And I can say comfortably and confidently that scoring is also comparable across both formats. That was our intent, and I think it's great that we are seeing test taker performance and experiences continue to validate that fact. So
Awesome.
I want all of our viewers to feel comfortable and confident, and also recognize that this is different. I think
Yeah.
there's an element of sort of good and bad versus. I think it's really just about difference and being prepared for that difference appropriately. And I think once you are prepared for that difference and recognize that I'm going to have to do things a little differently and be
Yeah.
prepared to do that, I think in terms of the outcomes and your experience and outcomes, we're clearly not seeing any differences. If anything, we're seeing sort of performance very much in line with the test center based versions of scores and outcomes.
Yeah, no, I had the same thought when I was sort of doing a video on this channel with three other people who took the test on the same date that I did, and we were just like shooting the breeze on how our experience was. And at that time, we didn't know the scores of any of us.
Sure.
Now we do, and they were pretty much in line with the scores that we got on the GMAT prep software, which sort of is probably the best indicator of what we're going to see in the test.
Of course, and I think that's great to hear from your own personal experience that you yourself had an experience that was consistent both with
Mhm.
how you were doing on the prep exams, which do continue to be the best reflection of how to expect and how to prepare for a GMAT exam, including the online, and also scores from test centers and online. So that's again a great thing to hear, Souvik.
So, looking ahead to the future, and I know that there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety involved because
Sure.
nobody really knows what is going to happen. So, I was talking to Sujin, who heads admissions at Ross, and she
Yeah.
was asking me, "Look, I'm getting all these questions that I don't have the answers to. So, let me throw a question like that to you, because why not?" So, let's say the things calm down, right, and we open test centers again, right? In your experience, do you think we will see a test environment that is closer to the GMAT online with an online whiteboard, or do you think we will go back to the scratchpad setting? So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, do you have any dates for us where we can expect to take the GMAT in person?
Sure, I think that's a great question, Souvik, and I don't want to give a sort of a non-answer, but it really depends.
Yeah.
I think we are living in uncertain times, and all of us, and I'm sure all of our audience here as well is thinking about scenarios and what to do if this unfolds and if this unfolds. Right, there are multiple pathways that we are all having to explore and think about. I think the one thing that I can say, that I do know for sure and I can commit to is that, we will continue to do a few things. We will continue to ensure that, first of all, we are following local government guidance and guidelines as stipulated by whatever part of the world that we're operating in. And that really stems from the fact that at the heart of, at the end of it, what's most important to us, of paramount important to us, is
Right.
ensuring the health and safety of our test takers, of all of us, and also of our test center staff, who are working in these test centers. So that is, that is the standard that we want to keep ourselves to and hold ourselves to, that we will comply with local government guidance, and we will ensure the health and safety of all of our test takers and candidates and the and test center staffs. For test centers that may currently be open, we do have several locations across the world where test centers are open and actually may be opening soon as
Right.
several regions of the world start thinking about and executing sort of relaxation of guidelines as it
Yeah.
relates to businesses opening back up. We will have we will ensure that we have enhanced safety and health protocols in place at these test centers.
Mhm.
And you can certainly find details of that on nba.com/coronavirus. On our website, we have a whole list of things that we're doing to ensure that when someone steps into, when you step into our test center, you feel safe and you feel comfortable as best as we could. So, this would be things like maintaining appropriate density reduction,
Right.
ensuring that we're complying with things like social distancing distancing norms. We have the appropriate health and hygiene practices and equipment in place to ensure that test centers are clean, and we're delivering the exams in an environment in the test center model that all of us feel comfortable taking an exam in, right? And I think that's the standard. Personally for me, the standard I would hold ourselves to is, I want to personally be able to feel comfortable and confident that I want to take this exam in the test center, and I would expect all of our test takers and candidates to feel that way, right? And we're doing everything to ensure that we and our delivery partners in Pearson VUE continue to comply with that. As it relates to specific test center openings, I don't have sort of exact dates. It'll be much like the shutdown was. I think the open up will also be a rolling thing, right? And we'll continue to be guided by local government guidance in all of these situations.
So as a follow-up to what you mentioned about test centers that are already open, so let's say I'm just going to take a country, for example, Korea, where things are somewhat getting better, right? And assuming, and again, I'm just using Korea as a placeholder example, test centers open up and before June 15, right? So can I take the GMAT online today and then schedule an in-person test tomorrow?
Yeah, if you want to take the GMAT twice in 2 days, all power to you. Go ahead and do it. But yes, you can. I think, again, I think just a few things I want to reiterate here, right, is that, we want to make sure that your health and safety is our primary concern, right? So if test centers are open and you have access to them, you feel safe access to them. Even in certain locations where test centers are open, Souvik, I mean, we want to ensure that people have access to them because there are restrictions in terms of mobility in many locations as well. But to the extent that you feel safe and comfortable accessing a test center, we would certainly encourage you, if that's what you want to do, to please go ahead and take the exam in the test center. We are not restricting availability of the GMAT online in those locations, even where test centers are open, because we do recognize that all of us are facing uncertainty and a lot of differences in terms of our ability to access physical test centers and even online solutions. So we're not restricting availability, but to the extent that you can access a test center or feel safe doing so, you can certainly do it. There are no restrictions in terms of 16-day limits, etc. I think those only apply to test center-based exams. So if you take the GMAT online today and you're up for another one of those 3.5-hour experiences to take the GMAT in a test center, please go for it.
Awesome. So I do have more questions in the community, but I'm also getting a bunch of live questions right now. And one of the questions is about GMAT versus the GRE, right? And now both of them have in-person versions and online version of the test. So one question that we got about both these tests is because, well, both of them sort of are accepted in most business schools. So if you take the GRE at home, you still can use a scratch pad, but you can only use an online whiteboard for the GMAT. So I wanted to know the rationale or the understanding behind this decision. And can you share some thoughts about that?
Sure, absolutely. I think I sort of go back to, where all of us were a little over, 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. And I sort of also go back to, what we were doing at GMAC and how we were thinking about what all of you on the call would be experiencing and going through. As test centers started to shut down around the world, what I can tell you is that, our team here at GMAC, we only had one singular laser focus, and that was to bring to market an interim online solution that we could offer to all of you and to our schools to help support you in your journey for business school. As I can expect that many of the people on this call today and watching it had application deadlines to meet and applications to complete and things to get done as part of their journey, and that's really what drove us. Timing for that and helping all of us get to that point was the singular focus that we had. The other thing that we needed to, we've always had to sort of keep in perspective is the high security and the integrity that the GMAT program is known and trusted for. For the last 65 plus years, the GMAT is the gold standard as it relates to the security and the integrity of an admissions assessment for business school. And as we tried to sort of balance both of those things, we brought to market a solution that we felt worked and did its job really well. And we're starting to see that in some of the data in terms of completion rates and score performances, etc. as well. Now, that said, as I mentioned earlier, it is a different experience. And I will admit, we heard market feedback. We heard you loud and clear, absolutely, as we brought this solution to market. And one of our guiding principles also is that we help all of you feel comfortable and feel best prepared as you can for your exam day to be able to perform your personal best. And I think in light of that, we recognized that we needed to do more. We did need to do more. While we did prioritize and emphasize speed to market, we did realize that we needed to do a little bit more to help all of you, in your journey to getting ready for your test day. And I think with that, we very quickly pivoted in a matter of days to bringing and making available the online practice tool,
Right.
which is obviously now available on NBAcom since we went live, and offering that as a very important tool as part of your readiness for exam day to allow you to understand what the online whiteboard experience would be like, to allow you to practice with it and enable you to get comfortable ahead of your exam day using the practice tool.
Awesome. That makes sense. In terms of, like you mentioned that you have done some analysis on completion and general score performance, and they seem to be in line. So I was just curious about, how that analysis sort of, expands as more people take the test. So we'd love to know more. But in terms of just the score, so one thing that I felt was a little bit not secure was the fact that I was getting the score just as an email, right? So I couldn't see the score on NBA.com. So do you think there is any chance that I could have my score featured on NBA.com in the future?
Sure, and that's a great question, Souvik. And I think we want to ensure that we're doing all we can to give test takers and all of you comfort and confidence that we're doing all the right things and listening to you.
Right.
This is one of those things where we've heard market feedback, and again, now that we have the solution which we prioritize bringing to market, we are working on ensuring that everything else around it in terms of your overall experience also continues to get better each day. As it relates to specifically scores on NBA.com, that will be made available, sometime in the mid-May timeframe. So, all of you will be able to access your GMAT online scores and also send scores through your NBA.com account shortly.
Oh, okay, awesome. That'll be a great tool too. So, dovetailing on that question, does that mean at some point when I look at my score reports on NBA.com by entering my birthday and such, will it also have my GMAT online score at some point?
So I think our thinking on this has been to give you the flexibility, and I think that's what sort of continued to guide us. We want to ensure that you have, as a test taker, as a candidate, the control and flexibility over your score and how you choose to share it. As I mentioned, the GMAT online experience is a little different in the way the test center experience works. So in a test center, you do have the ability to preview and cancel your score, which is currently not available on the GMAT online exam. So to allow you and enable the control and flexibility, what we have done is we share the score with you, and you have the ability to view it and review it, and then you have the control and the flexibility if you want to choose to report that score, for example, to business programs. So you continue to be in control of that. At this point, we do not have any plans to integrate this or bring this score into the score reports that are from test center based administrations, largely
Right.
because of that fact, right? Because we haven't yet given you the opportunity to allow you to quote unquote cancel that score. So we do
Right.
not believe it's fair for us to as a matter of forced choice include that
Mm.
score in the score reports. So we'll continue to give you that control and flexibility, and at a future time, if we do think about integrating this score into your test center based score reports as well, because I also recognize that many of us may want that score actually to be included as well
Yeah.
in the score reports. So we'll work to ensure that we give you the flexibility to allow you to do so. But at this point, I do want to sort of make it clear that we're not gonna without you having that control and flexibility, we won't force these scores into the scores that are reported to schools from test center based administrations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds great. It also brings clarity. So thank you so much for that,
Yeah.
Vineet. So in terms of score, because you mentioned that you don't get your score immediately and you can't like preview or cancel your score. So I think there has been some level of confusion around this at the beginning, because I think the official word was that we will get our score in like 7 days in some of the webinars that GMAC did. When I finished my test, I got a message that I will get my score within 2 weeks, right? And I received my score, I think on the 8th business day, or on the 8th calendar day. So would you have some clarity on how long will it actually take to get the score? So that's the first one, and then the second one is that it's a part of the question that we got a lot of feedback on some people getting emails that their scores are now reportable, but they didn't really get the email with the score. And like that could be maybe the email got flagged to spam or something like that, or they didn't receive the test score yet. So have you heard any of this stuff, or do you think this has something to do with how scores are reported and how scores are disclosed to candidates?
Sure. Let me address that. Let me address the first part of your question first, Souvik. I think so. I think we will make scores available within 7 business days. I think that's.
Okay.
I just want to sort of clarify that, as we continue to optimize and develop our processes, that could be sooner than that. But I think at this point, I think it's. I would like us to like you all to expect that scores will be available within 7 business days. I think as it relates to specifically, emails around scores being available or not, while I don't understand, I don't have context into the specific situation that Souvik you're referring
Yeah.
to. I can at least talk about what to expect, all right? And if there is any deviation from that, please do contact us and please do contact customer care so we ensure that there's nothing, there's no error or operational issue in that regard. But in terms of what to expect, right? So you take your GMAT online exam, hopefully in the comfort of your home, and and hopefully that's we're doing everything we can to ensure that's a positive and pleasant experience. As I mentioned, within 7 business days you can expect to receive your score, and at this point that score will be made available to you via email. It'll be
Right.
an email from official GMAT. So please ensure that that is saved in terms of a permitted sender, and so that doesn't go to spam accidentally. So you will get your score in an email. It will be the email on record that we have that you have used to register for the exam. So please continue to sort of monitor that. And I think once your score is available, at that point, you can either through your email or through your NBAcom account, then go and should you want to choose to report these scores. So if you go to your GMAT online section of your NBAcom account, you'll see functionality there or a button there that says send my GMAT online scores. That will allow you the ability to then search for programs and select programs that you want your GMAT online scores
Right.
reported to. At this point, I also want to sort of clarify that there are no restrictions on how many scores you can send. So score sending is unlimited and it's completely complimentary. There is absolutely no cost to anyone to
Right.
send as many scores you want for GMAT online programs, because we do want to support our test takers and candidates during these times. So unlike the test center based version where you can select up to 5 programs up front, and
Right.
then you have an additional cost to send additional score reports after the fact. For the GMAT Online, you can send as many score reports as you want,
Right.
and it doesn't cost you a thing.
Awesome. So, and again, these might be edge cases, Vineet. So, please let me know if this is outside of the general scope. But we do have a few reports of candidates who have been waiting for almost 2 weeks for their score. So, at that point, do you think it's an email delivery issue, or do you think there are actual cases if they haven't been able to get in touch with customer care?
I think if it's been more than 7 days that you took the exam, 7 business days, and you haven't received your score, I would encourage you to call into customer care and ensure, uh, you know, um, what your specific situation is and how it's being addressed.
Right.
Obviously, much like we do with test center based administrations, we have operational processes and protocols
Yeah.
in place to ensure security, integrity of every exam session. And I'm not suggesting that this is the reason, but there can be hypothetically a reason where someone's score is held up because we're reviewing that specific situation. I hope that is not the case in this specific situation, but I think the best thing to do would be for you to just either send us an email through NBA.com through the contact us pages, and or if you have access to it, please do call into one of our call centers, and we'd be happy to assist you.
Awesome. So in terms of that, and like the test being a valid test, passing through all the gets and checks that you have put in place, we did have some people on the platform in the first week whose test was invalidated, both during and after the fact. So for some, um, it was like a you were looking away from your screen, so that's not really something that we can let happen, and that person's test got invalidated. And for some, it was after they took the test, no issues, and then they heard back that your test got invalidated because of an irregularity within the test. So continuing with that, with my experience, I think I had two moments when I got a call from the proctor that I was I was mumbling. So I was like thinking out loud, right? So I was speaking to myself, and my proctor called me out on that. So, and I don't think that was a part of FAQ or like some of the regulations. So taking these two things into account, if first of all, can you talk to yourself during the test? Second of all, if your test does get invalidated, how do you reinstate it? How do you take it again? Do you get a voucher? What's the time frame? Would
Sure.
love to know more details on
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I mean, I think great questions, and I think as I mentioned at the beginning, some of these are new and different situations, right? This is when you
Right.
step out of the bound of a very controlled test center
Yeah.
environment into someone's home and someone's office, and you have no control over, limited control over how
Yeah.
they're taking the test. So we have to appropriately account for these differences whilst ensuring that we're delivering an exam experience that's pleasant, that's consistent, and also highly secure. So these are the balances that we're dealing with here.
Mhm.
As it relates to your specific question around can you or should you talk, I would say no. I think it's appropriate for a proctor, and I'm glad sort of the proctor picked up on that. I think it's appropriate for a proctor to flag that because it's really sort of security practices and protocols we have in place, right? Sometimes I say I'm guilty of that myself. As I'm reading a passage or something, you start mumbling around it, and and talking to yourself in terms of trying to capture that into your thought process. But I think from a security perspective, we do want to ensure that you're not speaking out, or anything that might be considered a risk to both the exam delivery experience, the security of it, and also the protection of our intellectual property. So I think I think if you're talking, you can expect the proctor to intervene and ensure, it's not about sort of canceling your exam at that point in time. It's about ensuring that the work environment hasn't changed as it relates to the expectations for security and integrity. um, as it relates to sort of technical issues, during the delivery of the exam, Souvik, I think let me address that from two different perspectives, right? So let's say you have an appointment, you're all ready, you've done your practice with the online practice tool, you show up. Let's say there are some issues with you checking in. It could be on
Mhm.
your end, or it could be, in rare cases on our end as well, in terms of connectivity, etc. But you're in the check-in process, and for some reason, um, your exam cannot be started, or there is a technical issue that prevents either you or the proctor from going ahead with starting your exam.
Right.
In that situation, the proctor will the check-in proctor will try and obviously constantly communicate with the test taker to the extent there's connectivity, or through their phone, and will try and recover the check-in at that point in time, and hopefully they're able to start the exam. But in that case, if you're not able to start the exam for one reason or another, that appointment will be cancelled, and you will be issued a full refund on your $200 registration fee, and you can go ahead and set up a new appointment. That will not be counted as an exam taken, if you will, because we have a limit of being able to take this only once. So if you've never started the exam, that's what you can expect.
Right.
You can expect your fees to be refunded. That refund process typically, for most credit card based payments, can take 2 to 4 days. But there is nothing that will stop you at that point in time from setting up a new appointment. Now let's go to the other situation where you actually completed your check-in and you have actually started the exam, and
Right.
if there is a technical issue at that point during the delivery of your exam. Again, it depends on the type of technical issue, but I think what most of us can expect is that the exam proctor will try and intervene. So if the screen goes dark, or the screen sort of hangs for some reason, or there is some other technical issue, it could also be a security issue. Let's say there's a sense that you're talking, or someone's in the room, they do have the ability to pause the exam.
Right.
There is some technical issue. They'll work with you either through the chat or through the audio bridge at that point in time, to try and address that. I think in most cases they are able to recover the exam session and help you with it. But if the power goes out, for example, and it's out for a while, right? There's nothing
Yeah.
either you or the proctor can do about it, for example, in those sorts of situations. So in that situation, the exam is cancelled. It is treated as cancelled, and then you can expect that a case will be recorded, much like we would do in a test center, right? If there is an interruption
Yeah.
in a test center based delivery, we record a case, and it takes us typically 2 to 3 business days to resolve those situations. And you can expect that someone from customer service will be in touch with you, or you can get in touch with customer service. We do a full operational and security review of every incident, because we do want to make sure that this is what we would consider a verifiable technical issue with the delivery of your exam. And I think
Right.
upon that review, our customer service team will work with you to ensure one of two things, right? I mean, if you want a refund on your exam, we will certainly do that. Or if you want to be able to take the exam again, we can work with you either to give you a refund on your fees and allow you to register again, or we can give you a voucher in that case that allows you to register for the exam a second time at no cost to you. So we're building that flexibility, but it will take us, typically, I would say 2 to 3 business days, assuming we have not been able to recover the exam session while the technical issue happened.
So you mentioned you're building that. So my understanding from that is that this is not in place yet. So you can't get a voucher today, but hopefully in the coming days you'll be able to get it.
No, I think you can get your vouchers today. I think we are starting to open up retake dates. I think the one thing I'll be honest with you, right, is we have stood up these processes and solutions in very short order, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you may face some prolonged wait times when you call into our call center. We are dealing with unprecedented situations here, and I think the one thing that I can sort of just request, and one thing I can commit to, is that we are doing all we can 24/7 to help all of our test takers, all of you. But we may request your patience in some situations where there may be some extended hold times, or it may take us, in some cases, let's say a day longer to resolve a specific case. And then that's the request I would make for you.
Awesome. So we are sort of nearing the end of the session today, Vineet. I might still squeeze in a couple questions, but I just wanted to remind everyone that we will do a chat on GMAT Club right after this, where I will be around if we couldn't get to some of the questions, or if you had any questions on my attempt or any other person that I've spoken to who has also taken the test. So once we're done with the session, we still have about 5-6 minutes, but after that, feel free to join us there. And Vineet, you're welcome to come there too, but I know that your time may be too occupied right now for me to demand more of it. But I wanted to ask you a question around test availability. So we are getting reports, and like GMAT Club is super international, and we're also very big, so it's hard to get specific data. But some of the specific data that we have received from test takers is that in some geographies, we have GMAT Online test dates available as soon as tomorrow or day after. But in some geographies, tests are not available for the next couple weeks. So why do you think that is happening? Is this more localized than global?
Sure. Yeah, and then I think let me address that capacity. So unlike a test center based model, Souvik, the capacity is not managed at a geographic level, right? So the GMAT online capacity model and test availability is at a global level. We don't have specific capacities that are earmarked for people at different parts of the world. So it's a global capacity model. It's 24/7. Appointments
Right.
are available at 15-minute intervals all over the world to test takers all over the world, except in areas where we do have some restrictions in not being available to test. I do know that there were some specific capacity concerns over the last couple of days. I think these have since been addressed, and so we have added additional appointments, and we continue to listen to your feedback and continue to add capacity. So I think I can say confidently that we've addressed some of the capacity issues that we were having, and they were certainly not for a specific region. So we're not. I want to be clear on that. We're not creating capacity by each region. It's global. It's 24/7, and I can certainly say from my own personal experience, I go in there every day because I want to make sure that we're making as many test appointments available to all of you as we realistically can. And I also went in, both last night and this morning, and there's appointments available as early as tomorrow, and certainly later this week and into next week. So we have worked over the last few days to address the capacity, the very specific short-term capacity issue that we have, and I can give you all the confidence that we'll continue to do that, and there should be ample appointments available between now and June 15th.
Awesome. So I think that's a big relief for a lot of people who are posting comments out there. And I'll just like to let you know, Vineet, there are people who are waiting past 7 days to figure out some of the issues, whether it can be the receipt of scores, or whether it could be reinstating an appointment that maybe got canceled. But I would like everybody to stay tuned. I guess there are more capacity coming in. Just wanted to end with, if someone cannot really contact customer care, right? Let's say it's just not happening, and we have multiple people talking about how they're checking in every single day. Is there any other mode of communication that you may think is the last resort?
I think please do continue. We have several channels available for all of you to contact us. I think I would say the best and most appropriate channel remains our contact us pages on NBAcom. That's the most effective way to contact our customer service team. You can do that through the web form on that, and or also through options like live chat and phones. So whatever works for you, we've given you the flexibility. I believe there's also sort of email addresses there that you can sort of email us. So through the website form, email, live chat, and phone channels, you do have the flexibility to contact us. And I think if there are specific situations where it's taking us longer than we typically would, I certainly can commit to the fact that we're doing all we can to resolve all of these cases in as quick and as short order as we can. But if there are specific situations where we're not able to respond back in the time that we would feel comfortable with, and I certainly understand these are difficult and anxious times, and I would not personally want to wait for a very long time to get a response. But I would just request some patience and support in this regard as we continue to find ways to support all of you and all of our test takers all over the world in these situations.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vineet. I have one last question for you, and I promise this is the last one. Well, this is not really the last one because we have a lot more in the queue, but
Sure.
I want to end it at a reasonable hour. Let's say I take the GMAT today. I take the GMAT online, and I love it. I love the experience, and I want to take it again. When do you think I could? Right now, we can only take it once, but like in a lot of geographies, it's nowhere close to opening up, right? And soon, not only round three deadlines are sort of in shape and almost over, round one deadlines are coming up soon. Will there be an option to retake the test online?
Sure, I think that's a great question. I think we've stood up the GMAT online solution specifically as an interim short-term solution to address a very specific need, right? We do realize that all of you are facing immediate deadlines. I think schools continue to have a need to evaluate talent, both in the
Yeah.
context of this year's admissions decisions and also now starting to look at next year's admissions decisions as well. So our goal with GMAT online has been to stand it up as for a very specific need to meet application deadlines at this point in time. But I also recognize that these are uncertain times and the
Yeah.
situation continues to evolve. So as that happens, we will continue to evaluate and reevaluate our approach to GMAT online, including extending it beyond June 15. I was sort of seeing through the chat that was another question that kept coming up, and the ability to allow you to take it more than once. So we'll continue to sort of listen to you, hear from you, and continue to address your needs as the situation continues to evolve.
Awesome. Well, Vineet, thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate your time and candor over the whole process. We at GMAT Club are sort of, watching this space and trying to help the community as much as we can. So please let us know how we can help even more. For everybody else who is watching, we will do a chat. So I will head over to the chat right now and we can hang out there and get some of these questions answered. If I could answer some of the questions based on my experiences. But Vineet, do you have any last word for the community?
Well, I wanted to say a few things, Souvik. Well, first of all, thank you. I think thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the great conversation. Thank you to all of you for all the great questions. Hopefully we were able to address many of them. I certainly recognize we were not able to address all of them, but we are happy to sort of continue to address them in a manner that's appropriate and creates clarity for all of you. I also sort of understand and appreciate that these are difficult and uncertain times for all of us. So I sort of want to again close with the fact that I hope all of you are taking good care of yourselves, staying healthy, staying safe, and certainly leave this discussion with the confidence and the commitment from personally myself and all our teams at GMAC that we have your best interests at heart. We're always here for you, and we're here for you every step of the way to support you in your journey into business school. And I think that's the purpose for which we come into work every day, into now our home offices, but all over the world. That's the commitment and the passion with which we work. So thank you again, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Vineet. I'll see you guys in the chat, and I'll catch you tomorrow in the next video at 9 a.m. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Bye.